Thank you for listening to Big Sky Wrestling. This is part 3 of our 3-part interview with Derek Sharp, which will be followed by a brief interview with the owner of Big Sky Wrestling, Frank Falcon. I just never bought into the whole Undertaker. I liked the Undertaker when he was the dead man. When he first came out, with the tie, with that hat, as the dead person, I totally bought that. But when he became that biker and everything else, I just could not buy into it.
Well, you gotta look back on something you said earlier. Even you said how exactly do I want to put it? Not that not that someone got stale. It's just like what they can only do so much with a person. Like he had to reinvent himself. He had to still stick to he's being the Undertaker, but he had to go in a different direction as far as keeping himself relevant with things. As far as like The Rock and that situation, I think it's more like The Rock left and did other shit and got successful, and obviously doesn't really need wrestling to make himself. Now, if Taker would have left and he was all over the place, and it would have been the same shit. Like Taker sold out. Taker didn't wrestle. He just wrestled once and then was just gone or on vacation or whatever you want to say. And then he'd show up again for another match. Like The Rock came, did his thing, usually around the time that a movie was coming out or something. And, he promoted all that. And then, he was like, okay, well, I'm out of here again. Like, he only needed them for what it seemed like he wanted to cross promote. So.
I just never saw him do that, though. He never really mentioned his films. He never really went there.
Well, it's kind of why Batista came back, and it seems like, or conveniently enough, around the time of this movie coming out, it seems like their plan, or what they said their plan, to put the belt on him until nobody supported him, and then they decided to throw Daniel Bryan in there. Like, he was going to have the title. His movie came out, and that was all that cross promoting. It just seemed pretty convenient. It was around the same time. Not saying that was Batista's plan, and hey, I'm going to come back for this movie thing, to promote that. It just seemed pretty convenient that all lined it up pretty well. So, and again, like I said, it's like, hey, do you want to come visit me? I mean, I'll go visit you, but I can only take off during what week's that WrestleMania thing you're talking about?
The Rock had come back for other times too. I don't think that he put in the call and said, "Hey, I want to come back." I think with Batista too, it was the same thing. The WWE called him and said, "Hey, we want you back for this." And with Batista, it's kind of like, well, his movie doesn't come out till June, But I do think that he was supposed to win WrestleMania 30, and because of CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, and the fans and all that, that didn't happen. But I'm still hoping that happens. I'm not a big fan of the part-time wrestlers, becoming the WWE champion, and I think that the Rock could have done a lot more when he was champion this last time.
And he can come back in and out anytime he wants. That's the thing too. He's built that, again, emotional connection with people that obviously at WrestleMania nobody knew he was going to be there. He just came out and everybody accepted him because he's The Rock, and we have that years and years of built up connection and trust with him that he could show up once on Raw and win the belt, and there wouldn't have to be any backstory or anything like that. And I think another thing is that he's been so busy with shit, he doesn't have those 6 months that he could come and build up a wrestling idea or work a series of matches with people.
That's true, but he could have done more house shows. He could have done more matches. I just feel there was a lot more that he could have and should have done while he was here.
Yeah, and at the same time, one, we go back to the business aspect of things. Do you want The Rock getting hurt on a house show in Des Moines? I mean, it's great for the people in fucking a little town that's going to see The Rock, but you really want to put him through the house show circuit, like
Well,
that schedule?
if it's
That
a
schedule we were
squash
talking
match,
about?
yeah, because he would do things that was like, okay, he would do things with Damien Sandow. He did a couple things with the Nexus, and it was like you could have put him in a actual match and just had him do those same things, and it would have gotten over just as well, maybe more, because then at least it's an actual match.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like we can have him interact. He doesn't need to be in a match with somebody, and he'll still get the people behind whoever he's, or the attention brought to whoever he's doing something with.
Yep,
So it works. I mean, he doesn't have to have a match out of it.
it's true.
Like I said, he's a gazillionaire, so he doesn't need to be doing house shows and
But I'm just saying, if he's gonna be doing that, and if he's gonna be doing this thing where the Nexus is gonna come out and they're gonna jump him, why not just do an actual match where you just basically squash him? Because I would think people, then you could at least build that up, and I don't know.
But yeah, that's The Rock for you.
Whatever.
And like I said, he's I mean, it's also a point as why would you buy tickets to go see The Rock at WrestleMania or Raw when he's going to be in, Santa Clara next week? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you limit the times that a person see, and this is another thing that can be translated into our little circle of smaller wrestling and our local deals. If you came to see The Rock, and that's the only selling point of the entire show is to go see The Rock.
Yep.
You sat through 3 hours of Raw for just The Rock to come out at the end.
I sure did.
And be like, I saw The Rock. Okay, why would it make any sense for The Rock to come out in the beginning of the show? And I'm not talking from like a WWE point of view, like from as you as a fan, you came to see The Rock. If he came out in the first 10 minutes, would you stay at the show?
Would I stay? Only if he's gonna come back.
Yeah. Right?
Right.
If he comes out in the beginning of the show and he says, "Hey, I'm here. I'm finally back," and he doesn't say anything about I got a match later, or I'm gonna come out later, and you're like, I'm gone. You're gone, and they just lost whatever you're gonna spend on concession.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if a casual fan only came to see The Rock, and this is where I say the smaller time shows, another deal that bugs me. I understand why I do shows and they have these bigger guys come in, and they do this whole meet and greet before the show, and you meet the guy and he comes out. Maybe they open the doors at 5:30, and from 5:30 to 6:30. You get the special treat of coming in early in a VIP situation and, meeting the guy and taking pictures and getting your stuff signed. Okay, cool. Now, after that, is there really, okay, you're going to want to see him wrestle still, but if you get the guy in the beginning of the show, you're not going to want to stay. Like, let's make him and his appearance seem special to the fans, because it is. And, let's make him wait till the end. So I would, even if I ran a show, and like I understand like these guys want to make their money in the beginning, because they like when you do the VIP thing, whatever they charge for autographs and pictures, that's on, that's extra money they get to make. But as part of my deal, I would be like, look, you can't come in until afterward. You can't. The first time you want them to see the person would be during their ring entrance. And again, it goes back to The Rock. Like if you saw him at the beginning of the show and he did the music hits, and you go crazy because it's The Rock. Oh my God! Later on in the show, are you going to get that same reaction if he comes out again? Well, it's The Rock, so yeah, probably. But and then that's going back to how passionate I am about this stuff, and everyone's got that one thing where they're super passionate about, and be it wrestling or music or whatever your thing is. But that's a good thing. Everybody should be passionate about something. And like I said, I would do things differently. I have one way of things I'd like to do, and everyone has their things of doing it. And I'm at the point where it's like, if I do all this stuff and we have the show and whatever, and it goes off, there's going to be things to change. I mean, there's going to be things that, hey, that didn't go as planned, or that did. So
you had mentioned to me the importance of the title belts.
Yeah, it's definitely a point. Like I said, going for. I mean, that's why you're putting on the show, so to speak. The guys that are participating in your shows and girls. I don't know if you're gonna have any girls, but um, their focus should be for the title to prove. It's not going to say that that title is recognized all around the world. It's not a world title per se. That always bugs me, but yeah, if if you're not going for the best, and that includes sports teams or whatever you're into, be it music and awards, or actors and actresses and their awards. I don't know what you do professionally, but you want to aim towards an achievement, and if you don't, then I don't know, something's wrong. Not really something's wrong, but just like I said, you want to, if you're a baseball player, you want to make the All-Star game. I mean, that's a goal. If you're a football player, you want to make the Pro Bowl. You want to be a champ. You want to get that ring, and then when you do, it's a big deal because you're a champ. So I mean, even I saw I was watching I think it's the after show on Raw. They did the interview with Biggie Langston, and he was like, they're talking about the tournament, the Intercontinental Tournament.
Right.
And he's like, if you don't get in this business to win titles and to show that you're the best, then why are you even in this? So
yeah, but then you have wrestlers like Tommy Dreamer who have never been focused on belts, and for wrestlers like him, it seems like it's never been about belts. And you hear the Big Show, he always talks about, if you're not in this business to be the champion, then you have no business being here. But I think Tommy Dreamer has a lot of business being there, and I see Tommy Dreamer as more of a Ric Flair as opposed to a Hulk Hogan, who is trying to be the champ and trying to build himself up, whereas Ric Flair has spent his whole life building everybody else up. And even through that, he's still been able to maintain that stature as Ric Flair, even though he's lost a billion matches. I mean, 16-time world champion, that means he's lost too.
Exactly. And I mean, if you look at Tommy Dreamer back in the the ECW days, the beginning, like I said, I'm a big fan. So at first, it was just that whole gain acceptance. I mean, they booed him for the beginning because he was this clean cut guy until the Sandman whooped his butt with that kendo stick, and then he got some respect, and it went from that to his feud with Raven, which was more personal than about titles. And his work with the WWE was he was throwing in that whole hardcore 24/7 kind of thing, like that was his focus. It's just like I said, not everyone on the show can go for the belts. Everyone on the show should ultimately want to go for the belts, but there are other issues that happen between people. Could it be a more personal issue? Yeah, there's only one belt, so you can't have 6 guys trying to get the belt, but everyone should be on the card to try to move up the ladder to get into that main event situation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
Even like the beginning match, a lot of people, when I went back to my company name, like a lot of people say that beginning match is literally curtain jerking, is literally just go out there and have a match, and it really sets the tone for your show. Like you don't want to put 2 guys that are really horrible on first, because then if the crowd's not into it and they're like, if you go out there and it's a stinker, you're like, what the hell's going on? Like if you start to show off with the Divas match, like you're not going to get the crowd. I'm talking about like a WWE Divas match. Not of any offense to those women, but I wouldn't start a show off with it because it's not going to get people up out of their seats and ready for the next match. The next match, the crowd's running into wanting to see more wrestling. So the first match is usually a faster pace action between 2 guys that are going to go out there with a point to prove and to show these people that they're not just there to be the first match. And that's it. Like I said, it sets the tone for what's going on. If you can have 2 guys flying around there in the first match, you're going to be like, okay, the show's going to be pretty good. Like we just got to see, 2 guys jumping off top ropes and doing crazy shit. Like you as a fan should be like, okay, this is going to get me going now. Let's see what they put out next. So, you know, like again that connection with people. And like I said, if you start out hot and on a good foot, a good step towards the ultimate goal of the end of the show, then that gets overlooked a lot. Like you just put out two guys and he's like, yeah, just go out there and these guys maybe don't have the best experience, so we'll just put them on first. And so, but that's just me. It's going to be a collection of your ideas and Frank's ideas and any other ideas that you might get in, and it's going to be guys' ideas and like, hey, I have an issue with this guy. Let's do this. And like, well, I don't know if that's really what we want to do right now, but so it's a lot of egos and like we have these guys on the show, and this other guy would be like, no, I'm not paying for that. I'm like, no, and he's like, well, these are the guys I want to use, and these guys I want to use, and this is like, look, this is not going to work out. And at the same time, a lot of friendships can end for stuff like this too, and that's like some of the bad stuff. Like, stop talking to this guy, but those places and those companies never work out. So seems like you and Frank are good friends. Seems like it'll work out.
I'm really looking at WrestleMania 31. I know during WrestleMania 30, a lot of, the smaller companies, they put on their own shows, and I'm hoping that by WrestleMania 31 that we're able to at least put on one show in the Northern California Bay Area.
This is a good time to set up your goals, and then, like I said, work backwards. Okay, that by WrestleMania 31 you want to have a show in California.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now let's work backwards. What do we need to do to get to that point? Okay, well, obviously we get to this show here that Frank's getting put on, and work with that establishment. Like I said, you're going to learn a lot of things from that show. What to do and what not to do. Obviously, if Facebook worked for advertisement, then make sure that those people get the message for the next one. Hey, maybe we didn't push it enough on social media. Hey, maybe we didn't flyer enough in town, and we got 50 people from just off of Facebook. So you find out where you need to direct your attention to as far as advertisement, what worked and what didn't work. And then it's the other end. Hey, maybe this guy fans didn't like this guy. We don't need to use him for our show anymore. Like stuff like that. And you're right. California is gonna have you're gonna have an easier time booking people than you are in Wyoming.
Yeah.
But and then another thing is like, as far as just making sure that you put out the best show you can. And that's a thing I stress a lot, because it's if you had $1 million, you would put on the best show you can. If you had a free million, not be like, I'm gonna spend 200 and keep the rest. If someone gave you $1 million to put on a show, you'd have the best show you can. So now this is take that smaller budget and be like, I can only put so much in. Let's use it where we can. The shirt idea is going to pay itself back. Stuff like that. Make sure that you find a guy that's going to record it so that you can sell these. You might not think they're a lot, but people who are there are going to be like, I want a DVD. Like, I want to see this again and play it over and be like, I was in the crowd for that wrestling show. Look, there I am. Like, so maybe it's like, hey, we won't pay for this guy to come in from out of town. We'll pay for this guy in town here to do to come record our show and put it on DVD. Like, you have to, like I said, it's a lot of talent management and a lot of backstage stuff. All the fun is putting the show on. All the work is the 6 weeks it takes beforehand, or however amount of time you want to spend before the show. But
well, it seems like we have about 2 months, so I think that's a pretty good. We have a lot of time. But I want to start now. I want to get everything, set now as soon as we possibly can to make this show our best show.
Definitely. So, and like I said, later on when we talk later on in the week, we can, you can get my views on different guys or stuff like that.
Sure.
And once the page gets out there, I can tell you it's pretty much easy. Once you go, and put the page out there or update it and, add all the new logos and stuff and announce that, we're going to have a show sometime, in June or July, whenever it is, people will contact you. People will see that and be like, okay, well, I'm kind of in the area, or I might not be in the area, but this is an opportunity for me to expand my range as far as a performer. And let's contact these people and see what's what's going on. So it's definitely going to be a busy time next couple of weeks. Like I said, looking forward to working with you guys and helping out in any way I can. Like I said, I said it earlier. Any successful show is a good show to me. I mean, I don't want anybody to fail. I mean, there's some people that shouldn't be doing it, but this is a free world. Anybody can do anything they want to do. I can't discourage that. And tell them no. That's why I said like the whole deal about Indiana wanting to make us a licensed state. You have to get a license and pay an annual fee. Will really knock half the people out of business. Like I said, there's a range around South Bend where there's like 4 companies in the radius of like 100 miles. So.
All right, my friend. Well, any final words? Any final things you want to say? Derek Sharp, curtainjerkerdesigns.com. You can always contact him there if you want to hire him. He has a very good price. The turnover rate is very good. I can speak to that. And if you are listening to this and watching this on our YouTube, then you are obviously seeing some of his current designs that he's made for us. That's curtainjerkerdesigns.com.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a good time. Like I said, anytime you guys want me on this, just to shoot about wrestling or life in general or whatever's going on, like I said, I think my rate's pretty fair. I can pretty much cover a lot of things. I work with your ideas, and if there's nothing there, just give me a couple of days to come up with some samples.
And you also work with our budgets too.
Yeah, definitely. I'll work with the budget. Like I said, and that helps out from, like I said, I have my experience of trying to put things together. I realize where money can and can't be spent. I rather go a little bit lower than normal on things just so that I can have more volume of customers. Make sure like the turnaround isn't always that quick. I'm not gonna BS anybody, but the quicker I can get all the information and all the photos together, the quicker that I can get that kicked out to you. But yeah, just hit me up on Facebook. Sounds great, and hopefully we do more of these. These are
definitely
it's pretty fun.
Yeah, we definitely are. I'd like to have you on as a regular guest for us.
Sounds good, man. Like I said, thanks for letting me do this. That's actually my phone.
Sounds like it's perfect time, right?
Not making wait. Damn it, I'm on a podcast. Leave me alone.
Ain't got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
But yeah, definitely a good time. Like I said, contact me on Facebook. I guess you can call me, but all my contact info is on Facebook. And I thank you guys for doing this. This is cool.
Right on, bro. Thank you very much.
No problem. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. All right, that was Derek Sharp from curtainjerkerdesigns.com. He has really helped me just kind of, I've had some ideas about the business, not knowing anything about the business, and he has been very patient with me. I've pitched him some ideas. He's listened to those ideas. He's given me constructive criticism, not just criticism, but constructive criticism to help me in my quest to mix not only truth and wrestling, but to give people a platform and to give wrestlers just one more place that they can go to make a little money, get a little experience. And we want to run this as an honest company. We don't want Big Sky Wrestling to be known as someone who rips people off or who sells wolf tickets, or as a company who makes promises and doesn't keep them. We can't make you any promises. Big Sky Wrestling cannot offer you anything. The only thing that Big Sky Wrestling can offer you is an opportunity to step into our ring, to use our ring in the way that you like, to work with people, to work with other wrestlers, and to put on a great match. That's all that we can offer you. That's all that we can give you. We will try to pay you as much as we possibly can. The payment is all dependent on what we talk about. We don't want to go back on any promises that we make. If we say we're going to pay you this much to be here this day, I'm going to make sure that you get paid that, and I'm going to make sure that We don't make promises that we can't keep. And if we do, we're going to come on this podcast and we're going to tell everyone that we were wrong. We made promises that we couldn't keep. We're going to try to be very honest. So this is Big Sky Wrestling. This is our podcast. This is the audio version of our show, and I'm very thankful that you have taken this time to listen to us. I'm very grateful that you have given us this opportunity to try to progress the wrestling business. All that we want to do is showcase wrestlers. We love wrestling. We are fans. Big Sky Wrestling, it really is that big sky dream. And that big dream of, wow, wouldn't it be awesome? Wouldn't it be awesome to put on your own wrestling shows? Wouldn't it be awesome to put on your own card? And we've really enjoyed the opportunity so far. That's all that we want to do, is put on a great wrestling show, mix it with local businesses, communities, fundraisers, schools. We want this to be your weekly entertainment source and your weekly sports source. Somewhere out there right now, there is the future Big Sky Wrestling champion. And Derek Sharp is definitely right when he says, don't call it the world champion, because it's not really the world champion unless you're going around to every continent and to every country in the whole world and defending that title there. Is it really a world championship? Big Sky Wrestling, Wyoming Pro Wrestling, is all about the regional champion, I guess you would say it. It is about the state champion. That's what I would call our title. I would call our championship not the world championship, but the state championship. That's what it truly is. So, if we can make this work in one state, we can make it work in the other 49 states and talk about other states and other countries and continents. We can talk about that later. But right now, the goal is to help out Wyoming. Wyoming is hurting. Wyoming needs jobs. Wyoming needs local businesses to help them out. Wyoming needs to be able to self-sustain so that Wyoming is not dependent upon the government, a federal government, so that we can all make our own money honestly, and we can support our families, support ourselves, and we can help other people within our local area. The domino effect of that could carry on through any state, but we need to make it work. We need to actually show that it can be done, that it can work. In Wyoming Pro Wrestling, Big Sky Wrestling, this can work, because if people want to see wrestling in Wyoming, we're going to give it to them. If people want to see Wyoming wrestling and you're out of state of Wyoming and you can't come to our shows, we want to make it available through our digital content, videos, audio sources. People who love wrestling, who are searching for wrestling, who just want to see good wrestlers wrestling inside of a wrestling ring, that's what we want to offer you. And that's what we are going to give you at the end of June of 2014. We have many goals, many dreams, many Big Sky Wrestling dreams, but the fact is, we have the ring, we have places where we're going to put on these shows, we have wrestlers who are dedicated, who have committed to coming to our shows and to putting on a great wrestling match. That's all that we can offer you. That's all that we can promise you. We're not going to promise you anything else. We're not going to promise that if you come to Big Sky Wrestling, you're going to get, the big WWE match. If you come to a Big Sky Wrestling show, I guarantee you're going to get our mind, our body, and our soul, our heart, and our spirit. We're going to put everything into the show. Everything, the core of our show, will be wrestling. But you might see, you might see local acts. You might see local comedy acts. There are many things that we can combine with wrestling to give you a great show. so that every Friday night when you come out to see our show, it might start with a comedy act, it might start with a musical act, but it will always be centered and will always be focused around wrestling, as it should be, because that's what we are about. This is a wrestling company. If we fail, if we succeed, is all dependent upon our marketing skills. It's dependent upon the people that come out. It's dependent upon the wrestling fans. It always falls back into the wrestling fans. Just like me. That's all I am. It's a fan of wrestling. I grew up on wrestling. Been watching wrestling since I was 6 years old. I've seen every WrestleMania, all 30 years. I'm going to be there at 31. I appreciate our good buddy Derek Sharp coming on to talk with us and to give us advice about the business, to give us advice about what we should and what we shouldn't do. He's a great person, and I can just say, hey, I have this great idea. Okay. I think that when the wrestlers come out, there shouldn't be music. There should only be music if you win. That's it. People come out, the spotlight hits, lights go down, the spotlight is focused on that wrestler. He walks into the ring, stands there, spotlight goes on to the next wrestler. He comes in, or she comes in. They come in to the ring. 2 wrestlers. The ring announcer announces both of the wrestlers. We see who cheers, who boos. We let the fans get involved in that old school 70s, early 80s wrestling style, where the fans tell us who they want to cheer, who they want to boo. Forget the music. The music is good after the wrestler wins. I am not a big fan of the music being played when the wrestlers come out. I think if the wrestlers are forced to come out without that music, it forces them to do something creative. Okay, so what are you going to do while the spotlight is on you and everybody's watching you? What are you going to do? You're just going to walk out? You're just going to walk into that ring? Raise your hand? No, you're going to do something. You're forced you're forced to do something creatively. So what do? Because when that music plays and the wrestler comes out, it's almost like a crutch to where they have that music instead of just them coming out and everyone's focused on them. They're focused on them when they come out, but they're also listening to that music. And so then they relate the wrestler to that music. But for some people, it doesn't translate, it doesn't connect. And for me, for old school wrestling fans, when I would go to the Oakland Coliseum in Oakland, California, there was no music. Hulk Hogan had music. Rick Rude had music. I think Jake the Snake, very few people had music. And it made the music mean something. If everybody has music and everybody's coming out to music, the music means nothing. If you don't play that music until they win, then it means something because you're celebrating that they've actually won. So that's just my own view on it. But coming up to the end here, we're very happy to have Derek Sharp on. We've been very happy to have Ronnie Nicole on, Glitterlicious on Twitter. Derek Sharp, Curtain Jerker Designs. I hope that we can converse with many people who are involved in the wrestling business, who want to be involved in the wrestling business, and who have been involved in the wrestling business. We want to have them on this show. So it's about all that I want to say. It's about all that I need to say. Talked about everything. Big Sky Wrestling in Wyoming is going to make it or it's going to fall, but it's all going to be based on the fans, on the people that show up, and that is based on us, on the people that own the company, on the people that want to make this company thrive, on the people that want to have wrestling thrive in Wyoming. There's not a lot of wrestling in Wyoming right now. Anyone who has listened to Talk is Jericho has heard Chris Jericho tell Chavo Guerrero that when Chris Jericho first broke into this business, His first name in the wrestling business was Cowboy Chris Jericho, and he was billed as being from Wyoming. Cowboy Chris Jericho from Wyoming, and he's Canadian. The fact that he was from, so when Chris Jericho first broke into this business, he was being booked as Cowboy Chris Jericho from Casper, Wyoming. And here we are, starting up a company in Wyoming where there's a lot of wrestling fans and no wrestling companies. Well, now you have a company, Big Sky Wrestling, and we have a ring. We have a venue. We have the fans. Now we just need to combine all that and make it work. We have wrestlers from the local areas who want to come to our shows from Colorado, and I'm sure we'll get many wrestlers who will be contacted, who will contact us, and who we will make deals with to come to our show and to put on a great wrestling match. And that's all that we want to do. That's all that we can do. That's all that we can promise. Is we're going to put on some great wrestling matches, and we're going to film them. We're going to stream them. They're going to be on YouTube and social media. And they're going to be on DVDs. Derek Sharp will probably be making those DVD covers. We are going to continue this thing called professional wrestling. People want to support professional wrestling and support sports entertainment. We're all for that. We support both. We support every wrestler who steps inside of a wrestling ring. I'm not a wrestler. Frank Falcon is not a wrestler. We're not trying to be wrestlers, but we love wrestling. We are wrestling fans. We respect this business. We want to learn about this business. We want to grow inside of this business. We want to become a part of this business. We want to help the business of professional wrestling succeed. And if we can just be a small part of that, then our goal has been met. Thank you very much. You have been listening to Big Sky Wrestling. Until next time, I'm Greg Fernandez Jr. This is Big Sky Wrestling.
What made you think, okay, I'm going to start my own company?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved. The first time this really entered my mind as a viable option was probably a few months ago, where I hadn't really watched wrestling in years. I used to watch it with my grandparents. It was kind of our ritual. I'd go over for the weekend, and of course, Saturday and Sunday there'd be wrestling on, so we'd watch wrestling together. And nobody else in the family liked wrestling, so that was just for myself and my grandparents. That was our special thing. And well, I started watching some wrestling documentaries, and I realized I'd like a job like Eric Bischoff's. That would actually be fun, instead of one of those really difficult, high stress jobs where everybody, there's no I in team, and they're putting a lot of significance and importance on things that aren't really that pressing. I mean, it's not like it's politics. It's not like, if I mess up, 5,000 Iraqis are going to die. But they kind of put that pressure in a traditional workplace setting. So I kind of figured that being a wrestling promoter and kind of involved with the storylines and the satisfaction of the fans got a good show, I could do that. I could totally do that. So I just started looking into it, and I realized, despite the WWE being the big one world wrestling company, there's quite a bit of independent wrestling out there. Some regions are underserved, others aren't. Others have a healthy mix of promoters that are constantly putting some shows on. But there's nothing in our area. There's one promotion. The promoter's very nice, but there's nothing on a regular basis in Wyoming. Where I am, we get maybe the county fair. There's a Christmas bazaar, and then there's the circus. So there's not a whole bunch of entertainment, and I think that's partially part of the reason a lot of people just end up they have to go to Denver, or they have to go to another big city. They have to go to Nebraska, or they have to go to South Dakota. for like their, I guess, their feel of civilization, or the amenities that we're used to. So bringing wrestling to Wyoming, I think, would create a lot of jobs. And we really need that right now. In times of economic uncertainty, you need jobs. There's not a lot of industry, and I'm not trying to get on the case of the ranchers out here, but there's only so many jobs they can give to the ranch hands. It doesn't really. It's not like if you went and made a big shopping mall or something like that, where there's going to be money flowing around and whatnot. We have a really limited population, but I think if somebody would just make a good, solid wrestling promotion, that a lot of the people that I've talked to, they're elated about it. I mean, not everybody's a big wrestling fan, but the other people that aren't necessarily wrestling fans, they recognize the economic impact this could have in a positive way, in not just in this county, but statewide. I mean, it's if we're doing wrestling, and churches kind of go way back as far as fundraisers go, and a lot of nonprofit organizations where they can kind of create a symbiotic relationship where the church might provide a couple of volunteers to help with security or ushering, and taking tickets or something like that. And that's one less expense for the promoter, and the church gets a cut of each ticket, so the church gets to make some money, which it's not like the federal government is subsidizing churches all that much. I mean, yeah, there are a couple of programs, but with the amount of churches that we have, that's not really happening. And then on top of that, you factor in there are other nonprofit organizations springing up all over the place. There's new medical conditions that we're still kind of figuring out. RSD, for example. Not a lot of people know about RSD. There's they just don't have that kind of infrastructure of an organization that's been looking into it for the last 10, 15, 20 years. So I think in a sense we can help out the nonprofit organizations, we can help the churches, we can get some industry going in the area, in the state, and just it helps to keep it local. A lot of the people have sort of some libertarian and some fiscally conservative views on money and whatnot, and this would really help to keep the money going, keep it flowing, and provide for some stability.
All right, so it is all about getting the local scene.
Yeah, I mean, I'd look. There's, for example, Montana doesn't have, I can't find a wrestling promotion that's just actively going out there either. It's not just about Wyoming. We live in an area called the Empty Quarter. If you drive through it, you don't really see all that much. You might see a couple of, farms and ranches along the way, but I mean, even if you're driving along 80, there's not, a whole bunch of civilization that's like, hey, look, we're here. So, in a sense, yes, I mean, I live in Wyoming, so I've kind of got a, soft spot in my heart for it. But at the same time, I also realize it's bigger than that. It's the region. It's the Empty Quarter region, with sparse populations. They don't have all that much, going on as far as entertainment goes and industry and whatnot. So yes, it's Wyoming primarily, but I also am taking into consideration the entire Empty Quarter. WCW, for example, they were filling a very needed role by going to a lot of the smaller areas that WWF at the time wasn't. They weren't going to these places. So the fans at least had a little bit of a hey, we got wrestling, but that's not really an option right now. And you need somebody that's got that that entrepreneurial spirit and mind, and a bit of that dreamer aspect of, because everybody that's into wrestling has at one point had that fantasy of, yeah, me being in the ring, and just, you'll see the British Bulldog, power slam somebody, and you're like, yeah, I could totally do that. Or you can see a heel power bombing somebody and be like, yeah, I could totally do that. I can play the role. It's kind of fun. I guess you could say it's a subculture to an extent. I mean, it's not going to be all that different than, or it's not going to be all that different than, goths dress goth, and this group dresses this way, and so there's a total wrestling kind of subculture, And everybody's thought, oh yeah, I could do this, but you know what? The more local promotions there are, the more experience the wrestlers get, the more exposure they get. They do it. It's a labor of love. It's not that they're rolling in the big oh man, I'm making so much. No, a lot of them are working for 20 or 30 bucks a night. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
nowadays, what does that buy you? I mean, even if you're not overly concerned with the whole GMO thing, and even if you're going to McDonald's and whatnot, you really have to budget and plan. So it's a lot of them are weekend warriors. They work a normal job. They have to work regular 9 to 5 during the week, and then in the weekend they go and they get their butt kicked. They get slammed around. They have to talk smack or have somebody talk smack at them as part of the show. It's just this kind of interesting. Everybody's kind of dreamed of it. Some people can, if they've ever wanted to try their hand at being a manager, they can try it. You know what I mean? It's not like they're locked into some big 5-year contract and they have to. No, they try it out for a couple of shows. You know what I mean? If it didn't work out, maybe I can be a commentator. That didn't work out, maybe I can try this. So it would provide a lot of the people that would eventually make it to that WWE TNA kind of level. Although with the numbers, we might have a show fairly soon that draws a bigger crowd, and that would be kind of funny. If local promotion gets 400.
Yeah, that would be more than TNA for sure. TNA drew 400 people and 400 people in Illinois, and they drew 300 people in Michigan. So that's pretty bad. So I would think if we can draw 50 people to our first couple shows, that should be a very good start. That's what I'm
Yeah, see, and
hoping.
if we get low, I mean, even with numbers and all that, I mean, like I'd look at 40 people. Okay, look, I'm X% of the way to where TNA is. You know what I mean? I can kind of check or set the milestones like that. And I want to just clarify, I wasn't trying to talk smack about TNA. I don't wish them ill. I actually do enjoy their. I like the fact that they're promoting wrestling. And the fact is that even some of the people that have been going to WWE as of late, if it wasn't for TNA kind of giving them that that ability to work as a wrestler and whatnot, they wouldn't be making it to another league or even an independent one.
Okay, so is that what you want to do with the Wyoming wrestlers? That it might be a untapped resource. I don't know.
I'm a big free market guy. When there's competition, it's for me, I remember the Monday Night Wars, Raw versus Nitro, and that was exciting. My grandma and we'd have it going on one TV and and taping it, and then we go to the other room and watch Raw, and then that would finish and we'd go and okay, Nitro's on. Unfortunately, sometimes you get it where there's commercials on both channels at the same time, and you're like, oh man.
Those were the bad times.
But when there's competition, I mean, even Goldberg said it best in that was it the Rise and Fall of WCW, which was a brilliant documentary.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, that was almost as exciting as the storylines. But when he pointed out when there's no competition, what does that do to the market? So honestly, the way if I had my way, if I was the pretender in chief, I would like to have TNA running, WWE running, another company running. I mean, it'd be nice if there was 5 companies that were at each other's throats, a 5-way, marketing and kind of like the Monday Night Wars, but just with even more players. That would be awesome. Because
Maybe it'll be like the territory wars, because that's kind of
well,
what it
see,
seems. And really, it shouldn't be wars. It should just be where we can all live in the same wrestling world. Why can't we all do that?
well, exactly. I'd like to see a lot more partnerships, kind of springing up. Like for
Partnerships.
example,
Yeah.
NWA. It's an alliance of multiple promoters. That's how it started. And like now in a way it's sort of, I mean, it's changed a little bit. It's kind of gotten it has its elite class, and but that happens in society no matter what. But if there were more NWAs, if there was maybe 4 or 5 different larger organizations that were actively working together, always sending each other fresh talent, and and just kind of swapping wrestlers or something, giving our a few wrestlers a chance to be recognized and seen in a completely new territory. If I had a partnership with somebody in Canada, they're running a wrestling promotion up there, I'm running a promotion down here, we can send wrestlers back and forth. And now, guess what? Now our wrestlers, from our region, they've branched out, they're recognized in Canada. And even international in a way, cross continental would be great. You know what I mean? If we could swap wrestlers with some Australian promotions, it the long run, it really does help the business out. But I think a lot of people, at least from a lot of the wrestlers I've been talking to
Hmm.
over the last few weeks, they they point out there's differences, all this kind of stuff. But if there's at least some kind of a loose alliance, I mean, it doesn't even have to be something super anything. It could just literally be kind of like the 13 colonies were in the very beginning, where hey, we're just let's be friendly with each other, and let's try to help each other out when we can. And
Yeah.
that would really help. It would help the wrestlers. It would help the fans. I mean, everybody wins. I don't see how you can lose.
Yeah, that's it. You only lose if there's greed. Once people get greedy, then that's when problems happen. When did you fall in love with wrestling?
This would have to be. Well, I mean, I really liked it when I was about 4. But at the same time, that's kind of like when life, sort of started, where most of my memories can go back to that age. So
But that would have been about what, 90,
this would have been in the
80,
80s.
80s?
Yeah,
Okay.
late 80s.
Late 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
Still Hogan. Hogan was still champion. Probably like Ultimate Warrior kind of.
I
Little
don't
before
even
that, maybe.
I don't even remember the details of who was, who. I remember there were a couple of like somebody got me a like the action figure of Jim Duggan,
Okay.
and it was this kind of 80s rubbery kind of
Mhm.
toys. I don't know. You might have owned a couple
Oh
of
yeah,
them.
I had all of those.
Well, so I remember having that, and it came with like a poster in it,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
that's old school. Yeah. Those
like
were their first
I
first
remember
ones.
having that. I had a Hulk Hogan one.
Yeah, you gotta have the Hogan because that Hogan one came with a belt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I ended up losing.
I think we ended up
It
breaking
kind of
it.
felt like a real like loss of a title too, like where you're like, oh, I can't find the belt anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like in your mind you picture like, oh no, he lost the title at pay per view.
Yeah, that was great. They had 3 or 4 of them. I think were like the first ones. They had Andre, they had Hogan, and Junkyard Dog, I think, and just a very few. They had Sheik, Nikolai Volkov.
Yeah, I
Okay,
remember. I had Nikolai Volkov.
but you remember Jim Duggan? Did Jim Duggan come with the 2x4, or I'm not sure if he did or not.
He might have, which I probably lost, pretty soon after that. And I actually had to. The Hogan one was replaced at least once
Okay,
that I
because
can
there were
remember.
a couple different Hulk Hogan ones, I think. But what about Macho Man? Did you have that one?
No, I did later, like years later, somebody, and they didn't even, I mean, I wasn't really watching wrestling all that much back then. I was just kind of going to school and listening to
Okay.
music. And somebody gave me Bret Hart, and Macho Man, and they weren't the big rubber ones from the 80s. They were like smaller, like hard kind of plastic, and they had some kind of mechanism where their arms moved. Like I think
Okay.
Bret Hart did like a uppercut or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. I remember those. Those were in the 90s. So that's early 90s, I think. Yeah.
And that's when I kind of, my grandparents actually moved to California, and I got to spend the last couple of years with them, which was, I guess, really good for me on a mental kind of, and emotional level, to be with them during that time. But that's kind of what I remember. Those are my last memories with my grandparents. I used to watch wrestling with them when I was way younger, and then years later, as a slightly more, slightly older, young man, again, let's watch wrestling together. This is our, grandpa and grandma and grandson time. and we'd watch wrestling. Yeah, so that's when I kind of started getting back into wrestling, and that would probably I'd a lot of people talk about the Attitude Era. I guess you kind of had to be there. I wasn't. I wasn't really watching wrestling anymore, but that's what I remember. And then that led to the Monday Night Wars, and that made some of the best wrestling, in my opinion. I mean, I
Yeah.
know other people will disagree. They'll say Attitude was better because they were there, and it might be. I just wasn't. I look at some clips, and it's just so out of context that I can't really relate. That was my favorite era of wrestling. That's when I really went hardcore into like, oh my god, this is awesome.
Did you have the wrestling ring?
No, I did years later. I got when I had gotten the Macho Man and the Bret Hart, which somebody just gave me for Christmas. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I remember that. And then I think a couple Christmases later, I got a WCW ring that had these stairs, and it had like 3 buttons on it.
Oh yeah.
And it would kind of yell. Like one of them was like Yidida, and then I forget the other ones.
Like a ring bell, I think, right? Did I have that?
Yeah. I think it was like ding 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 or something like that. And that was cool. Except like I'd set the wrestlers up, try to set them up leaning against the rope, and the rope was kind of like the like the same stuff that they make hair ties out of. So like they totally stretch and like fall off.
But
there's a lot of them on eBay.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
It's kind of weird because if you do a search on eBay for wrestling ring, and out of impulse, I'm just used to going low to high as my searching parameter.
Absolutely.
Nowadays you can't do that because there's literally like 500 toy wrestling rings,
for and like then $1.
And then it'll be like on page 16. Finally, oh well, here's the real wrestling rings, and the first one is $4,000, $5,000, and you're just like, oh geez.
Yeah, once you have that, man.
I'd like to, it would be very nice if, to get other industry involved locally. Like if there's, a company that's got the capability to make, toy wrestling rings and action figures and that kind of thing, that they would be able to make some Big Sky, make some toys of the the Big Sky wrestlers. You know what I mean? It'd be very nice, for the kids to grow up with that regional. You know what I mean? This is my favorite wrestler, and guess what? He happens to live in my state.
That's
or
a great idea.
He lives 2 or 3 states away, but he's still from the empty quarter. He's one of ours. You know what I mean? He's it's in a sense with professional wrestling, you've got the fans of these sports teams, the Washington team or San Francisco Giants or whoever, but wrestling in a sense kind of makes it like this is my team and this is my favorite player. You know what I mean? Because a wrestling promotion is a team. You know what I mean? Like you can't have that promotion unless there's teamwork. And I've put a couple of ads up, and I've gotten some responses where I just thought, I'm sorry, kid. I know you've got dreams and whatnot, but when they tell me in an email, I like to fly solo, and I do much better that way. I can respect that, but if that's the case, then go make your own promotion where you can do that. And again, it's not a power trip or anything like that. It's just this is a team. The wrestlers are they're putting each other's lives in each other's hands. These are they can be dangerous moves. You know what I mean? There's always that kind of wild card factor, and you want to avoid that at all costs.
All right, and thank you for checking out part 3 of our interview with Derek Sharp, and also for listening to that early interview that I had with Frank Falcon. Until next time, this is Greg Fernandez for Big Sky Wrestling.